Awesome.
All right, guys, we are live. Sorry about the delay. You know how shit goes down on a Friday when you're scrambling last minute. So, with that being said, we've got the technical difficulties as always. It just seems to be the story of my life, but I digress and would like to welcome Tallen, Nolar, and Alec. We're going to be talking about whether the category meta should end or not. So, welcome, guys. Glad you guys were able to hop on.
Oh, thanks for the intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Goresh is here too.
So how much? Yeah, Goresh might be joining as well. I don't know. Is he on right now?
No, he's in. He's in right now.
He's in.
Oh.
You're really quiet though, Goresh.
I am? Hold on.
I think he snuck in right there at the last minute.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's what Frieza would do anyway. So that's kind of befitting, right? So, how much stuff do you guys have to talk about? I'm sure there's a lot to kind of partake in this conversation. I'll go ahead and start off by saying the reason why I wanted to spark this conversation up right now is because, you know, two of the most recent categories in JP, let's talk about it, signature pose and rapid growth, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that personally as in terms of like categories themselves?
Is my volume good? Just checking.
Yeah, you're good now. You're good now.
Okay. Signature pose needs to be removed from the game, and
Yeah.
rapid growth is fine as like a concept, but them like intentionally leaving out like 90% of the category is just stupid.
So,
Yeah, a lot of these. Oh,
go ahead.
I would say a lot of these new categories just feel really abstract to me. Like, I mean, something like signature pose makes sense as characters who, you know, do Super Sentai stuff or whatever. But like rapid growth, that's 90% of the show. Like seriously. I mean, you could be like, okay, so Goku went from could barely touch Raditz to able to, you know, body Nappa and be on par with Vegeta in less than a year. I mean, that feels like a pretty rapid growth to me.
I think when looking at the categories, like the question we have to ask is like, what does this add to the game? Like, what does introducing this new category actually add to the game? Like, does it add anything of value? So like when you look at something like signature pose, like I would argue that it doesn't add anything. So
Yeah.
that's why I think it just doesn't need to exist.
Well, I guess, like, you know, in terms of that category itself, you know, obviously a lot of the great Saiyaman units fall into that, but there was already a category that a lot of them fell on, right?
Yeah, and that's another problem too, because a lot of them, like a lot of these categories are like they're fine that they exist. Like getting new force is fine. Like that's obviously going to be a category.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Earthling category is fine too, because it's like, you know, the Earthling category is like, it's not like it's stupid.
Yeah.
The problem is just that like they don't take the time to actually go back and make sure these categories are useful. Like World Tournament, like who like the first category in the game was World Tournament. I'm pretty sure that and Peppy Gals. And literally like we're now 3 years into the category meta, and it's just as bad as it was pretty much as when it came out.
So let me switch this around and ask each of you guys, what's the best category at its current state? It can be either JP or global, and what's the worst category that currently exists?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
All right,
Worst
we'll do the pop quiz. Oh, Nolar, you had an answer? Go ahead, buddy.
That was me.
Oh, sorry.
would-
It's Friday, man. It's Friday. I'm sorry. It's late.
I would say Earthlings is probably the worst category. Not like, okay, so the Earthlings category right now probably is not the worst category, but I'm just thinking like in terms of like what the category can get in the future. Like it really can't get much. Earthlings is like such a limited category for the Dragon Ball franchise, because like Master Roshi is probably the only like, I guess, big Earthling that I could see getting a Dokkan Fest exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Tien would get one. Yamcha probably would not get one either. And then the way that they've built the category, I mean, Krillin could get one, but we just got LR Krillin, so I don't know if they want to then just make a Dokkan Fest Krillin.
Right.
Oob, I guess, maybe. I mean, there really isn't that much space here, right? That's my point. So, I don't know. I would probably consider that the worst category, but I don't think that category should not exist, because I think the Earthling category actually is, like, it's an important category that's in the game.
Yeah.
But something like signature pose, it's so...
Pointless.
Yeah, it's like why if signature pose can be a category, then literally anything can be a category. So
That's definitely
I don't
true.
know. I would personally, I would pin the Earthling category as the worst, just for that fact alone that like it can pretty much not go anywhere. It's sort of just stuck in the mud. For the best, and for the same reason, I think the best category is probably either going to be Pure Saiyans or Transformation Boost. Just because the way that they structure Transformation Boost is that any character that gets a transformation feature in their card is going to be on there instantly, and
Right.
we can just see how many characters that they've released over the past 2 years that have transformations, and it's not going to stop, I don't think. And then Pure Saiyan is self-explanatory. Pure Saiyan is just every character in the game, every character in the franchise, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Every major character, yeah.
Yep.
What are your thoughts, Tal? Let's throw the pop quiz at you, buddy. What do you think?
All right. So, in terms of the worst category, I guess I would say, it's for me at least, it's a tie between Superpose and Earthlings. Kind of going off with Goresh's idea that, you know, just how they're going to evolve in the future. But again, knowing Akatsuki, if they choose not to really update either of these categories, then I would probably put Superpose a little bit worse. I mean, yes, I know he's got the new Dokkan Fest Go Tanks and everything, but let's be honest, who actually runs the Go Tanks for that particular reason?
Yeah.
Nobody. I'm sorry. I mean, hell, I can't even find Go Tanks friends anymore on my friends list. Like, just, it's not happening. I find more exchange booze than I do into Go Tankses. So that's just, I guess that says something right there. And again, it kind of comes back to the fact of, I understand wanting to make more categories. It's a selling feature. It's business to say, you know, hey, look, you got this brand new category here, and you also have this older category, because a lot of these guys are dual category leads now. But again, a lot of these are just kind of pointless now. And then in terms of the best category, I would probably say Transformation Boost over Pure Sands, until Pure Sands, I think, gets an actual good. Okay, when I say good lead, I don't mean that, you know, Blue Evolution Vegeta is a bad card. You know, Transformation Vegeta, he's a fine card. He's kind of whatever, in my personal opinion. But I just feel like there isn't a card that like is both a leader and somebody you want to use all the time, right? Like with the Transformation Vegeta, that is the physical one, you're always throwing him off rotation. Let's be honest here, right?
Yeah.
With how many cards are out. And obviously that happens with any leader. I mean, look at SDR Cooler now. He runs arguably the best category in the game with Transformation Boost. And I think a good chunk of the time now you're going to throw him off rotation to be a support unit, but that's fine. But with Vegeta, he's just kind of like, I need to get him out of the way. I don't want to deal with this guy right now. I'd rather have another support unit or something. So until I think the team gets that leader that I think it needs, I would say Transformation Boost is the best in the game.
Just a quick thing I'm going to add. I see a lot of people in chat saying that they think the Mechians is the worst category. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I think Nail is better than every single unit on the Earthling category.
Dude, Nail's amazing.
And Demon King Piccolo LR is also really good. And like, think about how much they can do within the Mechians category. They can make an LR or just a Dokkan Fest Jr. A Dokkan Fest. They already have a Dokkan Fest Piccolo. They could do a Dokkan Fest Slug and a Dokkan Fest Demon King Piccolo. So we have so much room to grow there. Whereas with Earthlings, like they can do a Dokkan Fest Master Roshi, and then Dokkan Fest but nobody is going to care about that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just saying, like, in terms of the growth potential, like it's just not there for the Earthlings.
Plus, have you seen the rotation of physical Piccolo and AGL Nail? Like, come on.
Literally, you cannot be Scratch.
No, God, no.
So before we get into the other guys, speaking of the Earthlings, right? Would it have made much better sense to maybe, instead of doing strictly Earthlings, something like a cross, like maybe a dual category of, you know, dual category lead character of Earthlings and maybe Z Fighters? That way it kind of expands the selection process a little bit, or even Z Fighters as a category themselves. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I've said before many times that I want a Z Fighters or an Earth Special Forces category. I mean, I just think like being able to run an entire team, like I want to take a good Goku, a good Krillin, as good of a Yamcha as we can get. Sorry, boy. You know, all those iconic from the end of Dragon Ball, beginning of Z characters that were part of what Yajirobe called the Earth Special Forces. I want to make that team, but it's really difficult to do right now unless you like have 1000-day Goku and you know, kind of cheat that way. Or SBR Goku.
I was gonna say, it's called SBR Goku, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be a very, very interesting. I mean, honestly, it'd be great to see an LRZ fighters as a free-to-play unit potentially be the lead for that category, but we'll see. I don't know. Like, I have hopes for it, but it'll probably never happen. We'll see.
Just to add my 2 cents. So for me, when you say worst category, it's basically what's the most forgotten and what I can't even find, and that's kind of an indictment on the friend list or the friend leader skill leads, anyways.
Yeah.
Because we only can set one, you can't find many. Like I have you, and I know you're always gonna have Metal Cooler, so that I know I could run an LOE team or
I'll never
team if I want to.
I'll never change my friend lead. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now. I don't care if it's an obsolete meta at that point. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. So
STR Cooler.
Wait, you use Metal Cooler as your leader?
I've had him set as friend lead for like I don't even know how long. Probably ever since I pulled him, honestly.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, Goresh definitely boosts. So anyways, the problem is, okay, so for me, I think the worst category is just target Goku, because one, I can never find Android 13 friends, and the category itself is just redundant, which is another thing we can talk about, how there's so many categories that overlap that it's like, why did you even bring it out? Target Goku is basically androids with hit, you know?
Yeah,
and
I think that category is like a personification of them just trying to force a new category every single time a Dokkan Fest exclusive comes out.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Because, like you just said, like look at the roster; it's just a copy and paste of like other categories that doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, you know, you guys think special pose is pretty bad. I agree in the sense that I can't find any Gotenks friends or leads, you know, so I can't even run it if I wanted to, and I don't want to run it, but if I even wanted to, I couldn't find anybody. So yeah, that's why I can, like, target Goku just is the shining example of what is wrong with this category meta, at least to me. And then the best one, it's a toss up between, again, Pure Saiyans and Transformation Boost. I'm not too original, but I think a Transformation Boost gets the edge because Cooler can just be thrown off rotation. You don't transform, you don't active skill him. He stays as a support. It's fine. With Physical Vegeta, I mean, you're so pissed when he gets to blue and he changes the entire field to physical, and you're like, damn it, I don't want to. What am I gonna do with this? So yeah, at least I think Transformation Boost gets a little bit of an edge because the leader can still be thrown off rotation and used effectively on the team, while Physical Vegeta is just like, I don't even want to look at you. So
What about you, Alec? What do you think?
I'm gonna go with, I think, World Tournament probably as the worst category, just because I feel like it doesn't really get the love it needs. I mean, it's such a like focused on part of the game and the early part of the series that, you know, I just feel like there's not a leader that you can really do anything with. You know, I don't know. It's one of those categories that I want it to be good so bad that I'm mad that it's not, so that might cloud my objectivity.
Right.
yeah.
As far as best category, I'm pretty sure that it's Transformation Booster Pure Saiyan, but I mean, as far as like fun, I really like Kamehameha.
Yeah, it's certainly a very fun team to run. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, look, I'm kind of browsing through the list of categories, and holy shit, I didn't realize we had so many. Looking at it, you know, visibly like this, but I mean, percent-wise, how much you think should actually be there versus like a bunch of fillers that we don't necessarily need? How do you guys feel about, you know, how the total category lists are versus a percent of what we actually don't need?
I think there's like a diminishing return, like of just adding on more categories for no reason. Like, were people hyped when like the new category came out for Kefla? Like, did anybody remember like, oh, thank you, like we're finally getting the rapid growth category? Like, nice. No one was doing that.
Yeah,
but like back when we were getting like Realm of Gods, like Resurrected Warriors, it was all super hyped to get new categories.
Yeah.
So at this point, I mean, I think just based off of that like hype factor alone, it's time to just move on.
Well, I mean, you kind of threw in a good
segue.
Segue into the very, very important question, right? Because it's pretty easy to criticize the current problems, but the suggestion on improvements the difficult part, right? And we kind of talked about this with the whole, revamping the world tournament, a couple weeks back or whatever. But what's the next meta though? If we end the category, what's potentially going to be next? Because before the categories we had the type metas, right? And then we moved into categories. So what's the next step here? Anybody want to throw in or pitch in their hyperboles or whatever? All right, fine. I'll assign it to. Let's see. Who do I want to assign this pop quiz to? Tallen, you've been kind of quiet a little bit. Go ahead, man.
Okay. Say, don't call on me. No.
Well, you know what? I did that because you're a teacher, right? So I gotta throw the same carbon at you, man.
All right. So just remember, there's no such thing as a stupid answer. That's very debatable sometimes. Anyway, so in terms of the next step, let's just say like tomorrow morning, we all of a sudden find out what's happening in the next Dokkan Fest for July. Because by the way, I'll be using JP because obviously we know Global would still have a few more category cards to be coming out. And let's just say for Tanabata/July celebration, that all of a sudden there's a new card comes out, but it's not a category unit. What would it be? I've seen the possibility that we would go for 200% types. I personally don't think we'll do that because there are still times where cards for big celebrations come out and they have a type leader. I mean, we've seen it mostly with, like LR AGL Gohan. He still had his AGL boost. The Super Saiyan 4 LR still had theirs. On top of the categories, obviously. So I don't think they're done doing that yet. And then another thing I've seen is that they'll do dual typing. So, they boost AGL and int, or they'll boost tech and physical or something like that, right? Obviously not, and we've had we've technically have had that in the game for a long time, right? I mean, do we all remember back before year one celebration where you would get, physical and tech key +1 attacking defense up 20% or something like that, right? We've technically had that in the game since the beginning, just not to the big numbers that we've come to know, right? 170%, 200%, 150, all that stuff. So I could potentially maybe see something like that where we go back to a dual typing set that kind of makes sense for it, but that's about all I can really think of in terms of what could it come after categories. And I guess that just shows that I'm not a game developer, and maybe they have the answer for that. I'm not sure. So.
Well, it kind of makes sense, right? With higher percent base type leads, considering Extreme Super Battle Road's been released on JP, where that would actually be kind of advantageous depending on which typing it goes to. But I mean, that's certainly a thought that's come across my mind as well.
Definitely, yeah, exactly.
All right, who's the next volunteer? Or do I got to assign people again?
I got one.
Raise your hands, kids. Raise your hands. Come on. There's no such thing as a wrong answer.
What if they, instead of just moving to a new meta, they add something to the game that fundamentally makes it so it's kind of like a new meta? Like if they added a new color to the color wheel. Like another typing of characters.
That's actually interesting.
I'm not saying it's a great idea. I'm just saying, I mean, what if that's one of the options that they pursue? I mean, that's one way they could spice things up a little bit.
That'd be pretty crazy.
I don't know how much it would do.
It's gonna take me a long time to memorize a new type wheel. I'll just say that much.
Yeah.
Especially with the no-no juice, right? Right, Nolar?
Yep. The no-no juice. We're gonna be all messed up.
I did see that as well on the comments when I did post it earlier about, increasing the amount of, types or colors based on the type wheel. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that potentially happening? Is that a good idea? Is that a workable idea, or is that just straight up a bad idea?
I guess it would have to be like a neutral typing to everything, because otherwise how would it work, right?
Well, I mean, in other gacha games, it's like you got your regular color wheel, blue, red, green, and, well, I guess for us, purple and yellow, but they have like a light and dark. So like light and dark is neutral to the colors, but they're advantageous to each other. That's how they would play it. So
that's like how Legends works, yeah.
Yeah, like Legends, yeah, same thing. So you could throw in like a light and dark color and mechanic where, and I guess that would spice it up a bit because technically, if you say you take made a light unit and you're going against the regular color wheel, they're just neutral, and so no type advantage or type disadvantage. That could add more mechanics for like super effective typing and that kind of stuff to really spice it up a bit. So that would be interesting in that regard. Yeah, so that's what I think of that.
Yeah, that would definitely be pretty crazy. Again, I think I can be a little bit slow in the learning curve sometimes, so I think it'll be interesting to. I don't know. Almost, it would almost be interesting to feel like I'm on day one again, trying to learn out, all the new systems and mechanics. I mean, we kind of see that with new stuff introduced, but I don't know. Like personally, like Goresh was saying earlier, with the new categories, when's the last time we actually got excited about it? So it might be, it might be worthwhile to think about it, but who knows? Who knows what'll happen with that?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I personally think that we're too far invested in the category meta to actually leave the category meta. But I do think that it's time we stop introducing like these stupid categories. So instead of continuously releasing these new categories, I think they can just expand on what we currently have. So like what if they
Agreed.
did something where like what if they did something where it's like the new Dokkan leader is, I don't know, like super class AGL is 120% all stats 3 key, and then a secondary boost where it's like all X number of category allies on your team get an additional boost if you fall into this category or something.
Yeah.
So it's a type boost,
I'd be down
but
for
then
that.
like for however many allies you have that are within that category, like you get an additional boost or something like that. I don't know. I feel like that because it sort of deletes the problem of these new categories just sucking, and because we already have the existing categories of the game, and we could just have that like set list there. And then it just sort of like expands on like, okay, now this category is going to be better because you can run it with this leader, and then all the members on your team are going to have a better, have better stats or whatever.
Right.
So something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly like that, but I think like expanding on the category, lists that we have, not like more categories, but making the bad ones more useful. Maybe like for something like World Tournament or Earthling or Namekian or whatever, like some of those bad categories that don't really have any like room to grow or they're just not good right now. You can add a leader that maybe gives a bigger boost to units that are in those categories. So it could help a lot.
Yeah, let me just throw this out there. What about a triple category leader skill? Is that ever going to be a possibility, or like basically just keep it to the current standard, but instead of a dual category, it'll be 3? I mean,
I can't wait for the Pure Saiyan Realm of Gods transformation boost with the leader.
Oh God.
Yeah, we'll never leave that state.
It's basically all types. That's what that is.
With some categories, it almost feels like if you were to put 3 of them together, it might as well just be an all types lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It is a difficult decision for sure. I'm sure the development team are running through the same headaches of getting out of this tunnel, so to speak, right?
Well, I think the biggest problem is we've been stuck at around 150. We've been anywhere from 130 to 170, right? For what, 2 years now?
Yeah,
Is that
it's-
how
Give or
long?
take, yeah.
yeah, it's been a while.
So that means like the thing is to really feel like we're in a new meta, we need new challenging events. And of course, that also means we need more power creep. We need harder events. So then we'll get to 200%, 220, 250, whatever. That's where that's the first pivot decision they have to make is, are we going to increase the difficulty to mandate that people like kind of force people to get into this new meta and force them to get these new cards, right?
Right.
Otherwise, if we're stuck at the 150, 170, and we're just doing dual types, we're, what Goresh is saying, okay, we'll give you like super Realm of Gods get 170, and you're running this type of team. An Extreme Realm of Gods get like 130 or something like that. It doesn't feel like there's something new because I don't have to get this card. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for them, they want to sell. Of course, everything's about selling. That's why we have these shitty categories, because they're trying to sell it to us, but none of us are excited. In order to sell those cards, I feel like they need to power creep a little bit in order to make it people have the FOMO, like fear of missing out of, if I don't have this card, I can't beat these new events. You know what I mean? So
Right.
My
Yeah.
only thing I would say about that is I think they've realized this too, because they used to power creep everything with leader skills, and that's like how they power creep the game. I think recently they've just been, instead of doing new leader skills, obviously they're just doing, the units are just busted. Like every new unit that
Yeah.
comes out is just insane. So like that's how they're now selling like the power creep in the game, rather than just doing better leader skills. Because leader skills are going to make your entire team just more busted, and then that reduces from their profits, because all you need to do is summon for the leader, and then your whole team's better. Whereas now you have to summon for 6 units to make your whole team better, because now each individual unit has to be
It has
better
to
in
be
itself.
good.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, what's interesting, right? And you know, some of the commentary here just in a second made me, you know, kind of think about it. But we've all been playing for quite some time, right? So, you know, we're talking about raising the difficulty levels and all that. How difficult is it currently for, let's say, like a new player when it comes to like Dokkan events or whatever? Is it manageable to clear? I don't even know that, because you know, obviously we're running teams that are efficient nowadays for every Dokkan event, whether it's new or not. So you know, there's that disconnect of what's the threshold of difficulty that's allowed for new players that's not going to put them off, versus, you know, making it difficult enough for us, you know, players that have been around for a while to enjoy it. So I don't know what it, you know, currently is like, but you know, it's kind of a weird thing, right? I mean, how difficult would it be for a new player right now to clear, I don't know, Kefla's Dokkan event or whatever?
I'm just thinking, like, imagine if you're a new player and you just open the category list. Like, how overwhelming is that?
That's pretty overwhelming right there.
Yeah, somebody told you to start on JP and you don't know anything about the game, Dragon Ball, or
Oh,
Japanese, right?
I actually started
Okay.
my account most recently during the Global 4 year last year. It's my second account. I lost my first one. But as far as coming back and starting over, now I can't speak to a brand new player because I obviously had like 3.5 years of experience before starting this over again. But it's not a difficult game at all. The difficulty is looking at the pile of stuff you have to climb through. So the 20 some odd stages of the story, you know, with 3 stages each, and you know, increasing difficulties. That's a lot of time investment. When you see the events list, you know, that's a big mountain to climb as well. So when we talk about things like increasing the difficulty of the game, if you do that, new players aren't going to want to climb the mountain, so to speak. I mean, I think honestly that's why we don't have new story stages, is because it looks intimidating, even though it's really not. But like, if we were to do something where they're going to shift away from categories or bump us up to something higher, you know, therefore needing a step up in difficulty, it's possible they could just gate it off like they do with Battlefield, where you have to have so many units of whatever rarity and you have to be such a high rank and have completed so many things. I mean, that to me feels like the logical way to create that next level of difficulty, but still allow new players to come in and ease their way into it.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
So I will. Oh, good.
No, I was just about to bullshit around. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay. So I was gonna say that for obviously I 100% agree that it looks right. It looks like a huge mountain to climb when you open up the game. You've done your initial summons because of, you know, maybe it's a celebration. You have 200 stones in your box. You're for multis. Maybe you get a decent pull, and it's like, okay, what do I do now? Got all this stuff to do. You've got training, you've got the story events, you've got the, you know, actual story quests that you have to do that they haven't updated in a long time. You've got to do the Dokkan events to get the medals to awaken all your characters, and you have to get the normal medals. I mean, we're talking like, you know, the West, North, East, and South Kai medals, the, you know, all those lower medals, those silver tier and bronze medals and everything, just to a normal awaken your characters. Then you got to do the Dokkan awakens. Then you've got to do this and this. And so I think honestly what the game needs to do is they need to funnel it a little bit better, where again they lock certain things down that you cannot reach until you have, you know, gotten to either a certain level, or you have done X number of normal story events or something, or you have unlocked, you know, or you've awakened, say, 6 characters. That way you at least someone have a team. Because in the end, the only difficult events in the game are Super Battle Road. You could argue some of the Infinite Dragon Ball History events, and then obviously Battlefield. But Battlefield more requires you to just simply have a lot of cards, and it's not really meant for a new player. But going into a Dokkan Fest event, you can beat that free to play. You honestly can. You can beat them all free to play. So I think if they would go into the game maybe, and again I know this takes away from making new cards and everything, but maybe during a quote unquote dead month, go in and just make some small tweaks and adjustments for new players where the moment you jump in and you've done your initial summons, be like, okay, look, now that you have your cards, let's direct you in what you should be looking for, and just have like a very small list of, training, medals, and awakening or something like that. And then go from there, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the newest things that were, that have been introduced as of recent, at least on the JP side, is a new stage of Infinite Dragon Ball history, right? And the Extreme Super Battle Road stages. I mean, are those acceptable levels of difficulty for let's just say players that have been around for a long time, or do we need something a little bit more harder, more difficult, a little bit more painstaking? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Are we at the right level of difficulty in terms of like new extreme modes of difficulty, or do we need to take a step up to that? And I guess the next question would be whether a boost in the percentage boost in the categories would potentially be required for that. I don't know. You guys tell me.
Well, as the only person here who hasn't played the Extreme Battle Road, because I believe you guys are all JP players, right?
Nope.
Oh no,
Goresh
Goresh
isn't. Nope.
Right, Goresh is global.
He's a betrayer.
Yeah, I'm not alone. But from the videos that I've watched, it does look like it's an adequate level of difficulty for this stage in the game, but it also seems to me like there's got to be something else, like whether it's another mode like Battlefield where it's gated off in some way, or whether it's a change that requires us to actually have a step up in the percentages. It just feels like we're on the cusp of needing that next thing.
Yeah, I guess the question too is, let's say we jump from 170 to, let's say we get our first ever leader with 200%. I mean, both leads on a setup of a team, that is a huge difference, is it not? Going from a 170 lead to 200%, right?
Yeah, because remember the jump from 120 to 150 was massive.
Yeah.
That was pretty big, yeah.
So, I mean, if we were to continue with the categories, right? I mean, that would be the next step, right? The highest is 177% that exists in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I guess technically are we going straight to 200 or 190 or somewhere in between? Like, what's the prediction on that? Like, are we actually going to jump to 200% leads?
I think they would do 200 just because it's the number 200.
Yes.
And it would be more appealing for people to summon for a unit that has a 200% leader skill.
Yeah, no, you make a great point. I mean, that's a clean number, and I think it'll draw a lot of attention, especially being the first upgrade to a percent lead. So yeah, that would make sense. I mean, I don't know, like, would it be? I guess it would almost be introduced as a new category. Would it be an upgrade to a current category though?
I would prefer it to be like an Earthlings leader or something, like a category that needs help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't give it to like Pure Saiyans, please.
World Tournament, cough cough.
Yeah, or like something like a category that is not ran at all, like World Tournament, like pure whatever the Earthlings category. Signature pose maybe could get it too. Some of those like dinky categories that nobody cares about.
Yeah,
200% leader could be good. I don't know, maybe like a 3-key 200% leader. I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I mean, how much focus are they putting into upgrading some of the weaker categories at this point? I haven't even kept track recently, but like, some of the forgotten, outdated categories, are they actually applying some upgrades to them, or are they remaining forgotten, or what?
I mean, like I said in the
Remain
beginning,
forgotten.
World Tournament has been out for 3 years, and they've basically gotten nothing for 3 years. So
Who was the highest lead for that? I feel like didn't something
I
come
believe
out?
it's Jackie. Is that the Jackie Chun?
This is Jackie Chun from the World Tournament banner. It's 77%.
Isn't it the Spopovich and
50%.
Yamu? Oh, they're 50%. Okay.
Yeah, they're 50.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking maybe there was like a 100 or 120% lead at some point for that category, but maybe
I wish.
So
Like-
obviously World
Like Happy Gals needs one too, right? Like, but they've got a 120 lead, right?
They've got a busted 120 lead. She's amazing.
Is it just Ribrianne?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the intro Brienne. And I think that's the thing when it comes to the Peppy gals though, is that when because the moment, because if I remember correctly, obviously when the categories started coming out, and then down and a little bit down the road, we got the Super Battle Road stage, and everyone was going like, "How the hell are we supposed to beat that?" And they obviously curved the damage from that particular Super Battle Road stage, and you could do it free to play, right from the get go, right?
Yeah.
And then over time, while yes, their leader is still only 120, they've gotten some really good cards. I mean, a lot of it's been Kale and Khalifa, but even something like the Into Videl with the ponytail Videl, she's a very good card because she like lowers attack and defense for 2 turns. She does all this other stuff. And then you've got the obviously like the STR Kale and the Tech Khalifa who just got Dokkan Awakens. You have the new STR Kefla. You have the LR Kale and Khalifa. You have even like Android 18 from the Tournament of Power. She's a very good card. She changes orbs. She stacks defense for 6 turns, all that stuff. So even though, again, their leader's not the greatest, they have a good fundamental category and just cards on there, essentially, which is what, unfortunately, a lot of these other categories are lacking.
Well, the difference with Peppy Gals, at least to me, is that a lot of their cards, the good cards that you're talking about, have status effects to them. So like stunning, sealing, attack lowering, and stuff like that, which is good for Super Battle Road, but it's not really good for the longer events like LGE, right? And
right,
yeah, history.
You can't do anything there, right?
Right. So like, I was just gonna to cap off what my point is just that I wish we got like a Dokkan Fest lead for them so I could use them on those things, but then I realized the team is just half neutered because of the event itself.
Yeah, I think that category is already like really good, just based off of like what they added to it. But I think one other category that you can talk about too is like the low class warriors with Bardock when they added the Dokkan Fest Bardock and like all those Bardock Team Bardock units. So they are doing some of that, but like it's not. You can't go back to every category. Yeah, like Giants, like definitely sucks. What else? I mean, you got like again the World Tournament sucks, and even some of the newer ones too, which is why people are starting to get annoyed because like, even some of the newer ones, like we talked about, Special Post just sucks and off the bat. So it's like, okay, like what's the point of this?
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty cool if like the Team Bardock setup, like be able to run, or even Guinea Force, being able to run teams like that, special teams, but not have to have a separate category for that. But I don't know necessarily how you can go about doing that. Maybe without broadening the horizon for the amount of units that fall in that category. But I would certainly like to see more specific themed team setups like that. But
yep. All right, I actually have to run. So
yep.
Appreciate you guys having me on. My conclusion is that I think the category meta is probably here to stay, but I'd like to see them do some sort of like spin-off thing with it and just make it more interesting. That's my idea. So.
Well, you've got the Connect Monday, so you'll let us know first, right? So we can do like Dokkan news videos and shit, right?
Yeah, but I gotta make sure I gotta make sure I upload the video first on my channel.
You'll do it in Japanese so nobody else understands but me. All right, we'll call it even then.
Hey, I'll understand.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot. My bad.
I'll just have my wife translate.
Oh, there you go.
All right, well, you be easy, man. Take it easy. Have a good Friday night.
Take it easy.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely a lot of good stuff. I mean, I don't know, like it's like I don't necessarily have a problem where things currently are. It's just I just don't want to see garbage categories anymore, and how do we curb that though? Because again,
well, I think good.
No, you go ahead. I finished my train of thought.
So I was thinking back when we said like when all those our initial categories were coming out, we were hyped about them and everything, because I think what hyped people about the categories is that we had an idea of what could be on them, and then they threw in a few surprises, and then in typical Akatsuki fashion, they didn't put in certain characters, fusions on, pure sans. I'm sorry, I just got a little bit of cough in my.
Let me ask a question. Are they doing this intentionally because, for lack of better words, dollar signs, or what? I mean, I don't understand why they intentionally would leave out units that would make sense to have on there.
Honestly, I think it's due to the fact of when this stuff was originally coming out and the categories could beat everything, quote unquote, balancing in a PvE game, which is a topic of itself to talk about. But
Yeah.
I personally think it was due to quote unquote balance. And then they realized what a stupid mistake they made, but they refuse for some reason, or they take forever to go back in and finally add characters into certain categories. I mean, they just literally updated, who was it? The LR, Trunks, and Goten into
Fusions. Yeah.
in the fusions category. It's like, oh, hey guys, 2 years late now. Okay, so when our Vegito and Gogeta is getting into the pure sands category, and I don't want to hear anything about it throwing them into the pure sands categories to make them busted. It's not going to. It's not. It really isn't. So, I think that's probably the reason why. And then I don't know, just for some reason they refuse to update things. I mean, we already know they refuse to update cards themselves. I'm not counting EZAs as updates. I mean, like go in and change a particular part of a passive. Maybe they refuse to do that, and then categories just take forever.
So MG in the comments actually brought a good point, and I'm surprised I didn't think of this because I play King of Fighter All Stars, which has like leader skills like this, but instead of just a category or type lead, what if they added percentages toward crits or additionals or evasion chances, as kind of a complementary byproduct of a leader skill? How would that work? What do you guys think?
In the leader skill itself, you mean?
Yeah.
I think as long as you're still at least hitting I think what most people would consider a mandatory at least 3 key and some odd percent, then you're fine. Because nobody, especially when you look at the harder events, Infinite Dragon Ball History event, Super Battle Road, Extreme Super Battle Road, Category Super Battle Road, you name it, right? If you don't have a particular percent, and I think more towards Category Super Battle Road, especially if you don't have a particular percent on a new character or something like that, and let's say for example they did 3 key and 80% chance to crit or something like that.
That'd be crazy.
That's not going to matter. Nobody's going to run that on a hard event because you're going to get smacked by 1 hit, right? You're going to look worse than Tech Broly Super Saiyan 3, and that's saying something.
Let's just throw this. Let's just throw this out there. Let's say key +3 for a specific category. Let's just say 150%, like how it normally is on the lower side, and then critical hits percentage goes up by, I don't know, 10 to 15% or something modest of that nature. I mean, is that something that would potentially make things a lot better, or is it more or less just not even needed since we have potential levels to begin with? But that increased percent might actually help.
I think it has the chance to benefit those who simply will summon for 1 character, or for one copy of a card, I should say. Because again, I think that's what a lot of people do. And honestly, you don't really need to summon for dupes. It's more of a personal want, I think, for some people. But so obviously, for example, let's say you made some new Dokkan Fest card. It's key +3 to, I don't know, I'm just gonna use Realm of Gods. I know Realm of Gods doesn't need a category boost anymore, but I'm just using it as a simple example. So key +3, Realm of Gods, 150, and you're an int unit, right? And your leader skill also says you increase additional attack for that particular category by, say, 10%. That would be pretty cool, right? Because I know obviously we have the skill orb system now, which is still a lot of RNG, and the Whis event is kind of pointless now. Luckily, chain battles here. But it requires a lot of luck to try and get a potential bronze or silver skill orb to give additional or crits, because if you don't have any dupes into a character, you can't use the gold skill orbs. And so a particular leader skill like that, I think, could benefit those players who weren't lucky enough to get a dupe, or just simply didn't summon for a dupe, I would say.
I guess the only thing to consider with this is, from a developing company, I'll just go ahead and say money-making, generating side of the business, I mean, that could potentially hurt. Would that potentially hurt?
Probably hurts them. Yeah, it hurts them revenue-wise, I would say, because you're basically telling them you don't really need to summon for dupes, because hey, guess what? The leader skill's already giving you that extra additional or extra crit or whatever, right? Because no one's gonna care about a leader skill if they give you just simply extra, healing orb potential that you get. I forget what in the ability system you can select either between extra defense against
or heals per keyword. Yeah.
Orb, potentially, right? Nobody's going to care about that. So obviously it's going to be dodge, crit, and additionals. And so if you're telling them like, hey, you'll get this extra chance right here in your leader skill, and you don't need to worry about dupes on an int card, most people are just going to summon for one and call it done. And then just over time you'll get them from other banners that they come back on.
I mean, Nolar, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're one of the whales out of the group, so
Yeah, Mr. Whale, let us know. How's...
Okay, so I think putting it as a static lead is an interesting concept, but the way I see them doing it, and they've done that already, is they just put it to a card. They could just put that in the passive skill of the leader card itself.
That's true.
And then every time you run the team, you'll have that. Plus, let's say it's Super Saiyan God Goku, for example, right? So he's on Pure Saiyans, he's on Sun Family, you just all those categories. Well, you put that into his kit in the passive, you can use that in all the other categories, not just the one leader. So
right.
I would say like for just getting the gears turning, yeah, that's a cool thought, but then they would probably just stick it in the passive and then call it a day with that and go from there, which we've been kind of seeing a little bit here. Like for supports, they do that. But it's really like for them, like, oh, well, they'll get additional attack if you face a specific enemy, right? Or they'll get a guaranteed crit if you face off against a Pure Saiyan or Hybrid Saiyan. So like they've been kind of putting that into the kit. If they want to broaden it, I think they just keep it in the passive skill and then call it a day.
Yeah.
To now for the money making side and really enticing the whales, they could put it in the leader skill, but then upgrade it per dupe. So it's like 5% crit chance. And if you get another dupe, it's 10%. If you rainbow it, it's 20%.
I could totally see that sort of setup.
I could see that.
And then you throw your friend on there who's also rainbow, and it's 40%. I think that number's gonna end up being really low if they do that, though.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there, and like, I'm sorry if I speak this into existence, but that's like one way. If I was a game developer and trying to splurge all the money from the whales, that's what I would do.
I mean, it's certainly enticing. That's for sure. I mean, you just simply said a short sentence, and I think all of us are like, yeah, I would summon for that shit, right?
Yeah. So that's one way you could kind of spice. If you guys were talking about potential system, putting that into the leader skill, like that's one way for them to monetize it and effectively monetize it. Because if we get 15% dodge, and you get a leader and you get a friend because they got 15, so it's 30%, and you've got a ton of int units. You put some dodge equips, like hey, no item run, guys. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's one way you guys can just turning the gears on wheels right there. Just like we could do that.
Let me throw out a little bit of an odd one here. I've kind of said it earlier, but King of Fighters All-Star really is the only other game in terms of mobile gaming that I play. So a lot of it's going to be in relation to that in comparison to Dokkan. But one thing I like and dislike about that game is the fact that you have to summon for a unit, but also for a battle card to be able to use a super attack,
equipment.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, like, personally, that would probably drive me crazy, and I'm sure it would drive all of you guys crazy, especially Truth. I'm sure he would lose his mind if something like that happened. But, I mean, is that even a possibility at this point where you tack on, let's say, a new equipment and it'll unleash a different super attack ability or something, like instead of traditional only LRs getting a 12 key and 18 key, by getting that extra card, battle card, let's just say, you get to unleash the 18 key super attack for a regular non-LR unit or something.
So basically, like giving them an extreme Z awakening without giving them an extreme Z awakening.
I mean, I guess in a way,
like make it the extreme version of their super attack or the overpowered version of their super attack.
Yeah, I mean, I guess starting off the gate instead of an easy A, they would get an upgraded super attack extra set or whatever the case is. Personally, I would hate to see that happen, but it's just kind of throwing it out there along with potential leader skill changes. Like you kind of throwing a monkey in the wrench like that. I don't know what your thoughts are on it personally, but
I think that if they are going to add things that are premium elements, they're really going to risk pushing away the Dolphins and the free-to-play players. Like, there's a lot of people already that complain about the cost of things and how, I mean, I don't believe this, but I've seen many people say that the game is very pay to play, and I don't think so. I think Dokkan's one of the most free to free to play friendly games out there.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
You know,
That's a good one.
but
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, if you want to have everything rainbowed and you want to be at truth's level, yeah, you put some money into it. But for the most part, just to progress through the game, you can do the whole thing free to play. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I've beaten Legendary Goku free to play, you know, and that's supposed
Legendary
to be like one of the
Goku
harder
free to
ones.
play. The Infinite Dragon Ball history events are free to play. Super Battle Road is free to play. A good chunk of the category Super Battle Roads are free to play. One or two of the Extreme Super Battle Road stages are not free to play. All the Dokkan Fest events are free to play. Yeah, no, that's garbage. If anyone's saying that Dokkan's pay to play.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only difference is, if you're free to play, you're just gonna have to wait longer. But that's just inherently the path you've chosen. So that's
I guess you have to lower your expectations a little bit, right? Compared to it's almost like you go to a store and instead of having a $1,000 budget to spend, like a well does, you only have $100. So obviously your selection is a little bit more limited. Your chances of getting the stuff you actually want is a little bit more limited. So I guess in that perspective, it kind of makes sense. But I don't know. Like, I mean, it definitely does ring true that a lot of it is, you know, beatable with free to play options. And I guess with that being said, is it because of the way you can actually attain some of the summonable units? It's the rates are better than other games. Like, you know, is it because the leader skills from free to play units are better to where you can actually clear events? I mean, what's the driving force as to why Dokkan might be more of a free to play friendly game more than others?
I mean, honestly, selection of units. I mean, you can't throw a stone anymore without hitting a decent free-to-play unit. I mean, I'm not saying like they're excellent, but I mean, there's a lot of really good free-to-play units in the last year and a half.
Yep, and then especially throwing in the EZAs. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I think what helps is like I'm assuming most people do multis. If you do singles, I'm sorry, but the multis give you a guaranteed SSR. Now, of course, you get most of the time you'll get one that you don't want or you don't have a use for, but they're not garbage because of easy A's and easy areas. They're eventually going to be usable. So if you're free to play, you're collecting as many stones as you can, you're summoning on specific banners, and even if you get shafted, there's something of use from those banners you can have. Like, the only thing is I don't know if specific SRs are usable anymore. I mean, year one was like, yeah, you could use them, but now we're like, you just go farm the SSR from the free to play event, and that's better than like 90% of the SRs.
Yeah. You can easily make a good team combined of a few summable SSRs that are non-Dokkan Fest, maybe a one Dokkan Fest unit, and then there are some free to play options that you have. There are a lot of good free to play options that you can have. And then on top of the fact that the friend system allows you to bring somebody who is basically a whale, or if they're a guest or whatever, if you're going for the popular categories, which I think a lot of good free-to-play players will go for, you know, those big banners, you know, with LRs or really good Dokkan Fest units, you're gonna find those leaders, right? You're gonna find those leaders in the friend system, as flawed as it is. So it works out just fine, to be honest.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Well, I guess we're getting close to that 1 hour mark, so I do want to kind of wrap things up. But I think a very good closing remarks question would be, you know, out of the metas historically within Dokkan Battle, which is your personal favorite? And it can be, you know, based on percents or just, you know, category, whatever the case is. You know, what state of Dokkan out of the 5 years was personally your favorite in terms of, let's just say, leader skills, just to keep in line with the topic today?
For me, it's the 120 monos.
Okay. Mine are. Oh, go keep going.
I would say I just like the flexibility in there. Like, categories are great and a lot of them are really big, but sometimes you just want to be like, what if I put, you know, Janemba with LR Int Gohan and on this team and do this and do that, and that's just a lot of fun to me. It's like having a big old toy box and being able to make your own armies.
It's definitely true. Yeah. That's a good point.
For me, it's the 70% metas. That's why I started GP. That was the most fun for me. Super Vegeta was fun as he is, but I loved my Buhan team, the undead team. That was like, you know, it took me forever, but it was fun for me. And like that was challenging but fun. and then we just got. And then for me, it got power crept to a point where it was no longer challenging, which made it not as fun anymore. But that's me. 70% meta.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it's a tie for me personally. I would say either the 70%, the end of the 70% era, meta, I should say. Not back in the days of, oh, you just beat it with Super Vegito, you know. God, I remember all those comments from those videos and everything. So I would say that the end of the 70% meta, and I would also say between the technically end of year 4 and going up to the end of the year 5. So basically from AGL Gogeta / Physical Broly when they came out up to, I would say, the SSJ2 Vegeta and Goku. In between there, I would say that was a time where I thought categories were actually in a pretty decent spot because they had built up. You know, you had things like the Super Saiyan category. At the end of it, we got introduced to one of my personal favorites, the Super Saiyan 2 category. In movie heroes, you had fusions doing pretty well. Obviously, your Pataras and everything. Movie bosses was huge because of Physical Broly, and the full power category was finally getting the love it deserved. So I would say that I've actually enjoyed that category meta right there as well.
So you're saying 2020 ruined categories like it ruined everything else?
Unfortunately, I think it did, and it comes back to the fact that we mentioned before, where we used to get excited about categories because we could guess what potentially could be on there, and then obviously you had a few that were left off, unfortunately, and everything. But now we know that whenever we see a new category, we're like, okay, we think it's going to be this based on A, B, C, D, and E reasons. But then Akatsuki just throws it out the window and puts these random cards on there. I mean, a perfect example again is Kefla's category. It's just like, okay, whatever. So I think that's why a lot of us are just not excited for them anymore, because we know that they're not going to be good because it's Akatsuki. So
why didn't they come out with the Majin Buu category lead when Gotenks and Majin Buu came out? I'm still wondering that, actually.
I actually like that category. It's a fun category to run.
Yeah, I'm just curious, from a timing standpoint with the units, relativity standpoint, you figured it makes sense to include an upgrade of that category. But, with that being said, I digress. I'm kind of surprised you guys didn't bring up the Strength Gogeta key plus 3 attack increase of 3,000 or whatever it was.
I didn't.
Literally everybody ran that as lead. I remember that day. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I think that's why I didn't like it.
I didn't like it, yeah, because that's all you saw. You're like, yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird
there was
time.
no creativity to it.
Yeah, it was a one process team building orientation, right? And that's pretty much. I mean, even like it's funny too, thinking back on it now, how things changed, because nuking was actually required at some point to beat certain events. Dokkan events, like you wanted to bring in a nuking setup to be able to clear events on the most efficient fashion and stuff like that. So it's certainly different than what it was before. But that just pretty much tells you how far along that we've come along, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the fact that we're complaining about categories, we're a little bit spoiled a little bit. I don't know. We kind of forgot the past a little bit. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, you put it in perspective. Like, we complain about the categories now, but I feel like we complain about the categories now just like how we complain about, oh man, I'm tired of Gogeta. Like, Strength Gogeta, like this, that's all I'm seeing. And if I don't have Strength Gogeta, no one wants to be my friend.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Right.
So I feel like we're in that spot. Hopefully they'll learn and reinvent themselves and make us excited for cards with specific lead skills. Kind of, but the thing, going back to what Goresh was saying earlier, is just they make the cards themselves busted.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't really matter too much what the lead skill is, as long as the card is really good, then you'll have fun with it. So I think that's gonna be interesting to see, because I totally agree with him in that. Like, you look at Physical Beerus, look at Kefla. I mean, she's great.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. I'm not shilling for Bandai like I normally do. But yeah, the category meta, the leads need some work. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Well, I guess with that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Oh, I forgot. I think I'm going to agree with the 70%, by the way. That was pretty much the most memorable time. That was also the time that I became pay to play at that point as well. So I don't know, regrettable decision or not. I don't know. I can't say. You know, the verdict's still out. We'll find out in a few years maybe. But well, that being said, I mean, it's always a pleasure having you guys on. Alec, definitely appreciate you hopping on for the first time. Nolar, Tallen as well. Thanks for hopping on. You and I think we need to do some more stuff going forward. We talked about this. We got some stuff planned, right? I think the audience will love it.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah.
So
100%.
we'll definitely have something up our sleeve. So definitely stay in tune for that. But you know, we'll come up again. In the meantime, if you guys have good topics you guys want us to cover, you know, definitely let me know through Twitter or whatever. Yeah. With that being said, until next time, thanks for watching, and thanks for you guys joining as well.
See you guys.